Okay, in this demo, I'm going to go ahead and add some audio to this now. We've got our slides movie in here, and I want to show you a couple of things about adding stuff, especially audio. I'm going to twirl that down and open my audio. And the first thing I'm going to add is my spoken word, and you see here we've got something called Inspiration Spoken Word. And you don't actually see the whole name, but if you want to open this up, you can adjust the toolbars to open these things wider and so forth. And you see that it gives you a lot of information about the frame rate for the sound, for the audio, and it gives you a bunch of information about media start time and stop time and so forth. I'm going to open this up though so I can see the words better. And I'll actually close this up because I really care more about the timeline. And then these are some tools that we'll be jumping back and forth to use. All right, but we'll keep that nice and narrow for now. Okay, and so I'm going to choose this inspiration, and I'm going to add it here to this audio 1, and I'll have that be on the top level audio on top of everything else. And you see that it is as long as it is, and so this movie's a lot longer than my spoken word. And my spoken word, I went ahead and I edited it to about approximately to the length that I want the movie. So I'm just going to leave this though long, and then we can deal with it later. All right, so if I come in here and I start to hit play now, inspiration is something I find in everything. Okay, you can start to hear me speaking in my spoken word section. Okay, now if I wanted to adjust the audio on that, I could come in here and go up to effects, and then in the top over here where it's the source, it also is where the effect controls are. So when you have something selected in the timeline, you see that it will automatically pull it up in that effects control. And to adjust volume, if you want to turn something up and down, if you just want to turn it up and down for the entire clip, you need to put the playback head at the very beginning of the clip, and then come over here, twirl down the volume option, and then where it says level, you're going to twirl that down, and then you can choose the slider to turn it up or to turn it down. Okay, and so if I turn that almost all the way up, you'll see later that the spoken word needs to be a little louder, because once you start adding other audio, it's going to start overwhelming the sound of the spoken word. So anyway, now that that's changed, you'll notice one of the things, it's kind of hard to see here, but one of the things that's happened is that we have a keyframe right here at the very beginning. That's what the edge of this little triangle is here. It's actually the edge of a diamond shape, because if we added another keyframe, let's say closer to the end, let's say place, no matter, it needs to move. Like about here, if we want to make it suddenly start getting louder from this point, we could add where it says level, we could click this button in between, add another keyframe, you see it turns blue, and we get this diamond shape on the timeline, and then we also get a level thing here that we can adjust. But I don't want to change it here. I don't want it to gradually get louder and louder through the whole thing. What I want to happen is that I want it to get louder right at the end. So if I move my playback head here all the way to the end of that audio clip, you see it also moves the playback head down in the timeline. Then I can come up here and I can add another level keyframe, and that just auto saved my project, by the way. I can add another keyframe at the very end, and then this is where I could adjust the level and make it a little higher, and you see that it adjusts the level so that now it goes up and gets a little bit louder. So if we move the keyframe here, or excuse me, if we move the playback head here and hit play, the greatest inspirations for creativity ever. You'll see that it gets a little bit louder. It's like hot air that really needs to move into a cooler place. No matter, it needs to move. It's not content staying the same. I think that's what inspiration is, really. And you'll notice also over here on the right side, it has the audio meter, so you can actually see that it starts to get a little bit louder if you look at the gauges. The motivation to move, to make, to do something, anything. Okay, and so that's going to be important later. We could have adjusted that later too, but I just wanted to go ahead and show you how you can adjust the level for the volume. Okay. All right, so let's also go ahead and go back here now, and let's add something else. Let's add another video. One of the things that you'll notice in the audio clip is that I talk about talk about a bird on a wire that flies away.
And looking at a bird on a wire because I know it'll fly away at some point.
Okay, and so one of the things that that I had done is gone off and found a picture of a bird on a wire that flew away. And so I'm going to put this all the way back, and I'm going to go ahead and open this video down here in the project pane and find the one that says barn swallow perched on wire. And if I also choose the source, I can drag that up into the source. And if I hit play, you'll see it starts. It has all this stuff that I don't want. This is a Creative Commons license, so and it allows reuse, so I can get rid of a lot of this stuff. So what I really care about is the part where the bird actually, let's scrub it until I find where the bird starts to fly away. All right. And the bird flies away right about there. Okay. So let's get it to where it actually starts to fly out. And one of the things that I want to do here is I want to see that that is at about 51 seconds and 17 and 0.17, okay, milliseconds. Okay, so if I wanted to, I could either set in and out points, which I kind of don't want to do right now, because I want to be able to kind of play around with it in the timeline to see exactly where I'm saying what. And I could sit here back and forth and look at exact time signatures to do that, but I kind of want to play with it in the timeline. Sometimes it takes a little bit of getting used to the timeline in order to be comfortable editing your time signatures before you start pulling things in and out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Oh, and if I had set in and out here, that it basically literally clips it and I can't expand it down in the timeline. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag that into the video 2 channel. And you'll see here that now we've got that whole barn swallow thing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this a little bit, okay, by clicking and dragging down here in this little scroll looking area, scroll bar area. And then I'm going to find that place, and we said it was at 51:17. Okay, and you can see the time signature here. So it was at 51:17. Somewhere in here, yeah, right about there. And then I can get it close, and then what's nice is that up here I've got these controllers, and if I hit the one that's just to the right of the play button, it'll go frame by frame. So I can click one frame at a time to move the timeline. So that's great. So here's my bird, and then I can find the exact point where it looks like it's about to start flying, and that's probably where visually we'll really see it starting to fly. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drag my trim tool, and it's not really going to trim it. It's just going to snap it to that playhead, and now I can drag this backwards in the timeline to where I say something about the bird flying away, and then I can set it to that exact moment, and then I can open it back up. So let's see how that works. Let's see where I'm talking about that.
I can find it in looking at a bird on a wire because I know it'll fly away at some point.
Okay, so I can come down here and find where it's flying away. The other thing that I can do too is I can open up my waveform, and I can start to see where I'm speaking inside my waveform. Okay, so let's hit play.
Wire, because I know it'll.
And it's right about here that I'm saying something about it flying away. So let's go ahead and take this and let's drag it over, and let's see if that makes sense. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to open this up, okay, so that we actually can see the whole thing, and then we can see if it flies away at the right time. So let's go ahead and I'll put it closer to this and
find it in looking at a bird on a wire because I know it'll fly away at some point.
Okay, so that looks like it's about the right timing. All right. Now, if you were to go back and watch the whole thing, which I'm not going to do because this is a time-based video, I don't want to waste your time, you would see that it's going to just open up right here.
Inspiration is something I find in every.
Like that. And then you'll also see that it just disappears.
Or in a stop sign.
Okay, now that's something you got to remember too, is that we actually have the slides video underneath, and if we want the bird to show up on top of the slides video, we can actually key out this blue background, which is kind of cool, and that's referred to as chroma keying. So to do that, what I'll do is I'll select the barn swallow video in the timeline. Okay, and I'm gonna scoot this over just a little bit along with the tool panel. Okay, and then I'm going to go over here in the project area, and what you're going to find is I have a little side drop down button because I have a low resolution for recording this video, but you might actually see all of the tabs. What you're looking for is the one that is called effects. Okay, and then what I can do now is I'm just going to use the search tool, and we're going to look for the thing called Ultra, and you'll see that it's under video effects under the keying folder, and it's called Ultra Key. What I can do is I can drag Ultra Key onto the barn swallow thing in the timeline. And so now that I drag that on there, if I were to go up here in the source monitor and find where it says effect controls, then what you'll see is that we now have an Ultra Key option. Okay, so I'm going to open this up a little bit more. And I'm going to also pull this down so that my my image gets a little bit bigger over on the right side. And I'm going to start to key this. You have all these different options, but the first thing you need to do is take your color picker right here and go and pick the blue color. And you see it does a pretty good job of keying everything out, but you might notice that there's a halo around the bird. If we hit play,
inspiration is something I find in everything.
You see that it's got a little halo around the bird. We don't want that. So the other thing that's important, if you didn't do this already, you need to make sure that, well, it's a good idea to always, if you're trying to do something to an entire clip, it's a good idea to pull your playback head to the beginning of that clip to make sure that it doesn't add a keyframe, because you want it to happen on the entire thing. So what I did was I dragged my playback head all the way to the beginning. Okay. The other thing that you'll notice, it's got all of this like extra digital data, all right, that's still showing up over here. So one of the things that we can do is we can fuss around with matte generation, matte cleanup, and so forth. Unfortunately, unlike Photoshop, where whenever you're doing color replacement, there's not like an addition symbol where you can go and add more colors to that area. So what we have to do is pick one color to key out, and then we have to start to fool around with a bunch of other settings. So let's try that. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to open up matte cleanup, and I'm going to mess around with some of these choices. So if you do the drop downs, you can adjust the sliders. I'm going to turn the choke up, and you can see that a lot of that haloing starts to disappear. And then I'm also going to open this up wider so you can still see a lot of this digital artifact stuff. And let's make it even bigger, and you can see that we still need to do some other adjustments. So for soften, let's just leave soften alone for a second. We'll turn the contrast up, and you see that that helps a lot. And we can also adjust the midpoint. Let's see, we start to turn the midpoint up, and it does seem to help, but it also seems like it's removing some of the image data from the wire as well. So you may or may not want that, but you see that it's also helping us get rid of some of the artifacts over here on the left side. So we probably don't want to turn it all the way up because it's removing a little bit much. Maybe somewhere in here might be good. Okay, let's take a look at, actually, let's look at matte generation here. And we'll probably leave the transparency alone because a lot of times mucking with that really kind of can screw things up. Sometimes it's perfect and what you need, but in our case, I don't think it is. So if you adjust it and you don't remember exactly what the previous setting was, you can click this reset parameter and it jumps right back to what the standard parameter is. And so you could look at highlight and all these different ones. I'm going to look at pedestal, and I'm going to turn that down to 0, and it removed a little bit more information. And I'm going to collapse these, and let's look at spill suppression. And actually, before we go any further, let's just see how the bird looks right now. And I'm going to pull this up so that for a second, I'm going to mute this so that we don't have to listen to the words. And let's just see how the bird actually looks. The bird looks pretty good, and the wire looks pretty good, okay? Not too bad.